and an author. His latest recently released book is The Other Side of the Wall, a Palestinian Christian narrative of lament and hope. A book about which Munther himself says gives voice to the Palestinian community through his own personal journey in the shadow of the wall. The subject of Munther's talk is You Cannot Serve God and the Occupation. This formed the basis of the recent cry for hope by Palestinian Christians to the global church, calling on them to step up efforts to end the oppression of the Palestinian people and challenge the theological justifications that are used to support Israel's military occupation. Over to you, Munther.
Good morning, friends, sisters and brothers, and greetings from Bethlehem, and thanks for the introduction. Good to see so many faces, so many familiar faces. I wish I could just go ahead and name the many friends I have here. And I'm honored really to join you. Thank you, Charlotte and the team for inviting me for this gathering. We've been talking about it for a while. Originally thought about being in person, but of course, COVID-19 has changed everything. But aren't we grateful for technology? Despite all of its messiness and unpredictability, but here we are. You can hear me, I can see you, I can, you know, we can join together in this beautiful gathering. Today, I would like to talk about the cry for hope. Not just the document, but the cry for hope that's coming today from the Palestinian Christian community. I speak as a pastor, of course, pastoring the church in Bethlehem, as a theologian here in Bethlehem, and a member of many ecumenical gatherings, hopefully trying to give you voice, to the plight of not just the Palestinian Christian church, but the Palestinian people in general. And today I will speak about the theme of hope, and also the theme of the whole document, Can We Serve God and Support the injustice against the Palestinian? Just so that you know, for those who are not aware, the document Cry for Hope, which you can visit at the website cryforhope.com or .net, the document itself, cryforhope.org, is a product of the Kairos Palestine group and the Global Kairos for Justice. So it's a combined work of Palestinian Christians and friends and those who have been accompanying us. And I encourage you, if you haven't not read the document yet, to go ahead and read it at cryforhope.org. Karen is with us in the meeting, and she was one of those who helped us draft it. To me, to speak about hope, we need to understand not just the context, but one of the things I've been learning a lot in my own life recently, and one of the things that I truly believe lead us to hope, is a concept in biblical or in our churches that is missing today. And so what I would like to do is first share with you about, before talking about hope, emphasizing our need as Christians to lament. This is a brief outline, if you see it now on the screen of my talk. Our need to lament as Christians. Before we can talk about hope, before we can talk even about action, as Christians, I believe we need to pause. Churches need to lament. And I would like to talk first about this whole concept of lament. There are so many messed up things, not just in Palestine today, but in our old world, whole world. Things related to injustice, to domination, to discrimination. All you need to know about how bad things are is to consider that this map that you see in front of you is called a peace map, or a vision for peace, where it's basically locking Palestinians within communities and locking us and having gates outside of our communities. If we want to go from Hebron to Bethlehem, we have to go on roads controlled by Israel, and that will be called a Palestinian state. That is what the world is offering us for peace today. If you want to know how messed up our world is today, just look at the regional events where a deal between two or three rich and powerful countries, at the heart of that deal is weapon and selling weapons, where the rich and powerful become even more rich and powerful, is called a peace deal today. I'm talking about, of course, about the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain deal. Many years of continued occupation, many years of depriving of our rights as Palestinians. The separation wall, which I'm sure many of you know about today in Palestine, surrounding our cities, taking our land, a wall that pushes us to another side and almost tries to tell the world that we don't exist, or that we are to be feared. We are to be feared because we are dangerous. This wall has long existed in the minds and theology of the Western world. A wall that shielded us, made us invisible. In the theology of churches that often speak about the return of the Jews to their land, as if the land is not inhabited by people who have been living there for hundreds, if not thousands of years, and in the process dehumanizing us and demonizing us. Over the years, all of this has been happening because we live in a world where the rich and powerful control the narrative, they control the fate of others. This quote by American Vice President Mike Pence explains the reality of the world we live in today. He came to Jerusalem and said, in support of Israel, that America supports Israel because your cause is our cause, your values are our values, and your fight is our fight. We stand with Israel because we believe in right over wrong, in good over evil, and in liberty over tyranny. I hope you see what is happening here, where the world is divided into us and them. Us, you know, in his language, of course, the Judeo-Christian tradition, those who are culturally superior. But it's really us as the empire, the strong, the powerful. And them, it's easy to label now all Palestinians. Notice in this quote how Palestinians are described. We are the wrong, we are the evil, we are the tyrant. And this is really the core of the problem today. And this is what we need to lament. We need to lament those who control the narrative and dehumanize peoples in the progress by calling our land either empty land or a land that is filled with those who are evil and tyrant and who want to destroy the world. And we are the enlightened bringing. This is colonial mentality at its heart. And we thought that the colonial days are gone, but really they are not. I'm saying we should lament. We should lament our world. We should lament the matrix of injustice. We should lament the fact that today Christians continue to use the Bible to support injustice and occupation. This is not just about Israeli politicians. We're used to that, whether it's Israeli ambassadors in the UN or even the Israeli Prime Minister today, Bibi Netanyahu, continues to use Bible and biblical language to justify even building settlements. But for many years, we've had pastors, churches, movements that side with Israel and the occupation. We need to lament that. We need to lament that Christian Zionism is growing. We need to lament that it's becoming a global movement. And that movement is even trying to silence not just Palestinians, but Palestinian Christians. We need to lament the fact that in the year 2020, Palestinian Christians are still being disinvited from conferences because of their nationality. I've experienced this in person, and many others have, my friends have experienced this, where just because we are Palestinians, we are disqualified from speaking in conferences. We need to lament that mentality within the church that doesn't look at me as an equal brother in Christ just because of my nationality. You know, what kind of, and by the way, this happened to me once in a mission conference. You know, It's so ironic that we call it a mission conference. And we need to lament the fact that the majority of Christians, I mean, it's easy to speak about Christian Zionists, but what about the silent majority that's doing nothing, that's engaged in billion-dollar industries related to pilgrimage, who come to our land yet care nothing about the occupation? Churches who at best would say, we are going to pray for peace, or wish that Palestinians and Israelis get along, using diplomatic language, hoping to offend nobody, and end up really saying nothing. Or even, if I am honest, Christians who are satisfied with sending charity, money, support, rather than speaking truth to power, rather than challenging injustice. I truly believe that 50 years from now or so, when people are going to look at the history and see the misery and the catastrophe of the Palestinians, many will ask, where was the church? And that's a question we need to ask about. In the prophet Amos speaks about the concept of a noisy church in Amos chapter 5, where God says, I don't want to hear your singing. I cannot accept your worship. I need justice. I need righteousness. Let justice and righteousness rule. So we need to lament the fact that so many Christians today live in a Christianity without justice, without truth. And so the document Cry for Hope tried to move in a new step in our efforts to address how Christians relate to Palestine and Israel. It's not enough anymore for us to say, yes, it's the occupation that is a sin, but we want to challenge the church that we believe what is at stake here is the very being of the church, and the integrity of the Christian faith and the credibility of the gospel is at stake if we continue to ignore or support the suffering of the Palestinians, especially because a lot of it is happening in the name of the Bible, and a lot of it is being justified by Christians. So this is a quote from the Cry for Hope document. We declare that support for the oppression of the Palestinian people, whether passive or active, through silence, word or deed, is a sin. We assert that Christian support for Zionism as a theology and an ideology that legitimize the right of one people to deny the human rights of another is incompatible with the Christian faith and a grave misuse of the Bible. This is truly what we believe is at stake in our discussion today. And we urge the church to look at this as a matter of the mission, even the integrity of the gospel. And so, yes, we need to lament the fact that churches are apathetic, and we need to lament the fact that the occupation is there. We need to lament the fact that justice is no longer at the core of so many churches. I've been saying it, and we continue to say it here for years. If our theology, any theology we promote as Christians, if it trumps the biblical and ethical teachings of justice, of Jesus, of love, equality, and justice, then we must rethink our theology. We cannot continue and be at peace with a theology that promotes a vision of inequality, or that promotes a vision of superiority, as if one nation or one people are superior to the other or more privileged than the other. This is a dear verse to many of us about justice as a pre-requirement to living in any land, as a pre-requirement to any healthy society. And so out of this context of living in occupation, living in the shadow of a theology that marginalized us as Christians, living in the backyard of a church that seems to not to care much about justice, came this document, Cry for Hope. And, people continue to ask me, can we continue to hope as Christians? And I think, first of all, of course, we should hope, because Christianity, to be a Christian is to hope. To be a Christian is to hope. But I think we need to change our concept of hope. Hope is not this naive expectation that things will change just because we are positive or we are, no way. Hope should be grounded in biblical truth, but also hope should come from our yearning, our desire to see justice and truth. That's why I say here, hope comes from the heart of lament. A church that laments the reality we find ourselves in. A church that laments our own failure. A church that laments the fact that theology is allowing injustice in many cases, not just in the Palestinian cases. Lamenting the suffering of many nations. Lamenting the rise of more and more, expressions of the empire. It's because of that we have to hope and work for a different future. Over the years, I've said we can hope, we should hope as Christians, because in our faith, we believe in a good and just God. But here in Jerusalem, in Bethlehem, the resurrection reminds us that yes, Good Friday with its darkness might last long, maybe too long in our case. But those of us who believe, because we believe in the empty tomb, we have to continue to hope that Sunday will come. And you look around us and you see there are really good people on both sides. We shouldn't just see the dark things. The kingdom of Christ begins like a mustard seed, and I see so many small mustard seeds here and in the church, in the global church. Many of us, this is to me a source of hope. But more importantly, hope is not something about waiting. To me, hope is about what we do. I've always inspired by the quote of Reverend Mitri Rahib, who was my predecessor at the Christmas Lutheran Church. Hope, he keeps saying, is what we do today. Hope is what we do today. And so rather than, being fatalistic and adopting this, oh yes, there will never be peace in the Middle East until Christ returns, a statement that I've heard so many times when I've had conversation with visitors to our land when discussing politics. And by the way, as a child, I used to love this answer, even as a teenager, because it made Jesus look like the superhero who flies in and rescues us. But really, I no longer believe in this. It might sound strange to hear a pastor say this. I no longer wait for divine intervention. Why is it? Because because I believe the divine intervention has already taken place in our land. I live in Bethlehem. It's where God became man. It's where Jesus started a movement, a kingdom movement. So the divine intervention already taken place. And more importantly, if God is going to intervene in our world today, it should be through us. We are his ambassadors. We are his arms on earth. We are his voice. So yes, I do believe God intervenes, but I also believe that oftentimes he uses us. So rather than wait for divine intervention, I believe God calls us. God calls us to action. God calls us to action. Hope is not simply to wait. Yes, we wait for the Lord, but hope compels us to work. We work for that we hope for. And I hope you keep that in mind. We work, and if we hope for peace, we hope for justice, we hope for equality, this is what we should work for. And so from lament to a vision of hope to action. And this is the kind of order we want to see. Hope into action. Action that challenges, as I said, Christianity, soft Christianity or toothless Christianity, that is merely satisfied with saying we're going to pray for peace, or we hope that Palestinians and Christians get along. That's not peacemaking. Peacemaking is about taking a stand. Peacemaking is about speaking truth to power. Peacemaking is about effort and action that we put. And so I want to refer us back to the Cry for Hope document, a short document, but that comes with very important and practical steps that I'm sure you will hear more about later. Steps that can be done by individuals and churches. Churches, we call churches to initiate processes, to initiate this process to seek justice for the Palestinians, especially to end the, and that's why I engage theologically about the misuse of the Bible. If Palestinians want to resist the occupation, affirm our right to resist non-violently and creatively. It's ironic to me that it's the powerful want to dictate to us how to resist even sometimes, if we are even allowed to resist. But that's, you know, our rights are being denied. We won't be silenced. The Palestinian Christian community, along with the civil society, has come with many ways of creative resistance. And even that is now under attack. And we ask churches to affirm our right in that. We can do much when it comes to government pressure, all in the context of opposing any hatred, especially with anti-Semitism or Islamophobia. There are many, many initiatives on the ground. Sabeel Jerusalem has done an amazing work in highlighting these initiatives through the Kumi project. And I encourage you to look at, so that you don't, what do we do? Well, look, there are so many things happening on the ground that needs to be empowered. And when COVID-19 is over, please, not only to come and see and tell and do tourism and pilgrimage in an ethical way, in a way that engages with the people of the land. And so continue to pray, but also work for us and work with us, work for peace and justice. And I want to end by referring us to the vision. And remember, I moved from lament to hope to action. But as we work for peace, please let us remember what is our end goal. Because our end goal is going to shape the way we work for peace. Our end goal cannot be destruction or more war or exclusion. We believe here that this is God's land, as such it must be shared. In other words, we're not calling for the destruction of Israel or for the removal of the Jewish people. We're calling for equal rights. We're calling for a reality in which we share the land as neighbors, not simply divided where the powerful, you know, says we lock you in a room and that's how we divided the house. That's not what we're hoping for. But we're hoping that we live together. If I may use the metaphor of Martin Luther King, sit on the table of the fellowship together, our children playing together. That's our hope. That's what we work for here in Palestine as the church, and you as our partners worldwide. What I call the concept of sharing the land, where our religion, ethnicity, background should not make a difference when it comes to our rights or responsibilities, where there are no second-class citizens in the land, which is exactly what we find in the constitution of the state of Israel, in its discrimination against non-Jewish citizens in the so-called nation-state law. But as we oppose that, may we remember that our response to any exclusive ideology should always be a vision for an inclusive one. In other words, we don't want to promote another exclusive ideology. So this is our hope, to share the land, and that is clearly articulated in the two quotes that I always share from the Kairos Palestine document, and I will end with these two quotes. And I hope that as I read them, we read them in the spirit of prayer. Through our love, we will overcome injustice and establish foundations for a new society, both for us and for our opponents. Our future and their future are one. Either the cycle of violence that destroys both of us, or peace that will benefit both. Even though we have fought one another in the recent past and still struggle today, we are able to love and live together. We can organize our political life with all its complexity according to the logic of this love and its power, after ending the occupation and establishing justice. That's our hope. That is our vision. In new society, in new reality, living in this, organizing our life together. But there is a first step that must be taken to end the occupation and end all forms of injustice, so that as equals we can talk about building the land and building our futures together. This is our cry for hope. Thank you.
much, Munther. Your words are always very profound and yeah, have a huge impact on us. And thank you for taking the time for joining us today. I know it's you've had lots and lots of Zoom meetings in the last few months, I'm sure, but we're really, really privileged to have you here. I'm just going to give us a sort of very brief 30 seconds just to pause before we move on. If you do want to use this time to send a question, if you've been listening really intently and actually you'd like a moment just to fire off a question, please do so. That's to info@sabeel-kairos.org.uk. And in a minute or so, we're going to be moving on to our worship. Okay, I'm delighted that we're now going to enter time of worship together, led by Garth Hewitt. Many of you know Garth, I'm aware, but I just wanted to give him a very brief introduction. Garth has travelled the world for over 40 years now, bringing to life through song and through written word the struggles, the challenges and the issues facing a number of communities across the globe when it comes to freedom, justice and equality. His commitment to Palestine began many years ago, and it's led him on a long route, which includes him being an honorary canon at St. George's Cathedral in Jerusalem, and also a patron of the Palestine Solidarity Campaign. He founded the charity the Amos Trust back in 1985 and served as its director for 26 years before he handed over the reins, but he remains a faithful advocate and committed supporter of the Palestinian Christian community. So we're really delighted that Garth was able to join us today. We're going to hear some of his music and some reflections from him, starting with his song, By Your Cross.
By your cross and your life laid down, you have set your people free. By your love and your outstretched arm,
Well, thank you very much for your introduction, Charlotte, and good morning, everyone. It's great to be a part of this conference, and that song is one I've just written. It's the first time it's been heard, and it was sparked off by the cry for hope. Actually, it's still being written. Things are changing every day in the song, but you heard the first version. And thank you, Munther, for inspiring us and challenging us, and I look forward to the rest of the day. And the liturgy that we have here, really exactly on the theme of the cry for hope and the fact we can't serve God and the occupation. So do join in the responses which are in bold. Oh God, thank you for this time together to think about and discuss the ongoing injustice against the Palestinian people. May our thoughts and prayers lead to renewed action and renewed commitment. May we be reminded that the powerful challenge of Jesus against the empire of domination should also be the path and witness of his followers. May we
never be silent.
May
Our churches never be silent.
We cannot serve God and the occupation. It is time, as followers of Jesus, to take decisive action. The very being of the church, the integrity of the Christian faith, and the credibility of the gospel is at stake. Support for the oppression of the Palestinian people through silence, word, or deed is a sin. May we never be silent.
May our churches never be silent.
Christian support for a theology and ideology that legitimizes the right of one people to deny the human rights of another is incompatible with the Christian faith and a grave misuse of the Bible. May we never be silent.
May our churches never be silent.
We cannot serve God while remaining silent about the oppression of the Palestinians. So we challenge one another, and all Christians and churches, and all church leaders, to campaign and protest against the ongoing deprivation of the rights of the Palestinian people.
May we never be silent. May our churches never be silent.
Future generations will ask, why were you silent? God of protest and injustice and occupation, can we claim to be followers if we do not listen and act? Can we claim to be followers if we do not raise our voices? Can we claim to be followers if we do not protest? Lord, give us a compassionate heart and a hunger for justice. And
take not your spirit of protest from us.
All are made in the image of God, so all should be treated equally.
May we never be silent.
May our
churches never be silent.
And a vision of a world of justice, God's Dream by Archbishop Tutu. Dear child of God, before we can become God's partners, we must know what God wants for us. I have a dream, God says. Please help me to realize it. It is a dream where there will be
more laughter, joy and peace, more justice,
goodness
and compassion, more love, caring and sharing.
It is a dream of a world whose ugliness, squalor and poverty, its war and hostility, its greed and harsh competitiveness, its alienation and disharmony are changed into their glorious counterparts. It is a dream where there will be more laughter,
joy
and peace,
more justice, goodness and compassion, more love,
caring and sharing.
I have a dream that swords
will be beaten into plowshares, spears
into pruning hooks.
My children
will know they are members of one family,
the human family,
God's family.
In God's family, there are no outsiders. All belong.
Prayer for the land once called holy. Living God, in Jesus you broke down the wall of division. We see other walls that divide in our world, like the separation wall that cuts into the heart of Palestine. May Palestinians find justice at last, so Palestine and Israel can both live in peace, both live in security, both live in freedom, without walls, without checkpoints, closures and curfews. May we realize the great message of hope that all are chosen or none. We're all in this together. One God, one community, one hope, one future.
Amen.
A prayer in this time of COVID. Lord, the COVID-19 virus continues to be a cause of great concern and suffering in Palestine and Israel and around the world. We pray for wisdom for all those in authority who have to make decisions. We pray especially for those families who have lost loved ones to the virus. Lord, in your mercy.
Hear our prayer.
Prayer for Gaza. Lord, we pray for Gaza, forgotten Gaza, courageous Gaza, standing alone and experiencing a brutal blockade. It's clearly a war crime. We pray for justice to prevail, for the blockade to end, so that the people of Gaza may be free at last from all oppression. Lord, in your mercy.
Hear our prayer.
Blessing, make a difference in the world. May God bless you with discomfort at easy answers, half-truths, superficial relationships, so that you will live deep within your heart. May God bless you with anger at injustice, oppression, and exploitation of people, so that you'll work for justice, equity, and peace. May God bless you with tears to shed for those who suffer from pain, rejection, starvation, and war, so that you will reach out your hand to comfort them and change their pain to joy. And may God bless you with the foolishness to think that you can make a difference in the world, so that you will do things which others tell you cannot be done. This little Bible reading from Isaiah chapter 40. A voice cries out in the wilderness, prepare the way of the Lord. Make straight in the desert a highway for our God. Every valley shall be lifted up, every mountain and hill be made low. The uneven ground shall become level, and the rough places a plain. Then the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all people shall see it together, for the mouth of the Lord has spoken. The final song, My Name is Palestine, is inspired by a painting of Palestinian artist Suleiman Mansour, and those words from Isaiah 40, with their vision of God's justice, influence some of the words of this song. My name is Palestine. Amen.
Amen.
Cries out in the wilderness. I hear her call, but I don't know her name. The voice cries again in the wilderness. My name is Palestine, I will remain. She's holding a flag so very high, raises her voice with such a strong cry. She's a symbol of a people who refuse to die. My name is Palestine. Forces of darkness can't extinguish the flame, the freedom in your eyes and the love you retain. These are more powerful than the weapons of war, with this terror and lies, you and something more. And all across Palestine they new dawn to come. Make a road in the desert for equality to bloom. Make a road in the desert for human rights to come. Make a road in the desert for freedom to come. She's holding the flag so very high, raises her voice with such a strong flag. She's a symbol of a people that refuse to die. Says my name is Palestine, my name is Palestine, my name is Palestine, my name is Palestine.
Here, doggy, come here, Scruffy. Come here. Scruffy. Watch out, he's dangerous. He's a killer dog, that. He thinks he's an elf.
Thank you very much, Garth. That was tremendous as always. It's brought us up to 50-minute break, which some of you may be relieved to hear about. So it's time to get to the bathroom and get into the garden, get a cup of coffee. During the break, we're going to show a film, a Palestinian film called Ambience. It's already won 3rd prize at the Cine Fondation at the Cannes Film Festival in 2019. The Youssef Chahini Award at the Cairo International Film Festival, and it's been screened in many film festivals around the world. It's a Palestinian director, Wissam Al-Jafari, and I think Mike's going to give us a few minutes to just get the cup of coffee before he starts playing it. And I have a message to give you. Please, you can't remove the banner from your screen. I'm not too sure what that means, but enjoy the break and enjoy the film, and see you all again shortly.
Thank you, Karen. Yes, there is a banner across the top of the screen when you see the movie that says something along the lines of, this is a preview. Just ignore that. We're okay to show it legally. We just can't remove that banner. I have to say to you, having practiced and listened to My Name is Palestine this week so many times, I can't get it out of my head. It is such a fantastic song. Garth, my great thanks for writing and performing it, and my huge anger that I can't get it out of my head now. It's there constantly. It's the most wonderful song. So I'm going to show the movie and share that with you shortly. Please do keep on the mute. We heard somebody's dog there giving us great information about their dog at the end of that song. So try and stay on mute if you can, so that we can all enjoy what's happening. So bear with me, and then we'll be back shortly.
بالك يا ولد لا تتفغص البندورة. خالد؟
ايوه
يا خالد.
ايوه.
مش رادد علي كأنه نايم.
برضه مش حاطه السماعات يا امي.
انت هون ليش بتردش علي؟ بنادي عليك.
صباح الخير يما.
صباح النور.
تعالي يا ايوه. بص بالنص يا زلمه، ليش بتردش على التلفون؟ تعالي اشرب قهوه تعال. مرحبا خالتي. خالد لازم نسجل اليوم، ما ضلش موعد للتسليم. طيب نسجل بس نشرب قهوه بالاول.
احمد كيف حالك؟
تمام خالتي.
كيف امك؟
كويسه.
ركبتك مسنانها؟
ركبت.
طب الحمد لله.
انت ركبت السماعات؟
بس بنسى احطهم.
يلا باي يا امي.
وين متسهلين؟ قولي حكي شي بدك تاخده تتهمل.
بدنا نلحق موعد تسليم المسابقه.
مو مسابقة.
انت شو اخبارك؟ انا تمام حبيبي. والله الليله صعب كثير لاننا مشغولين في هالقصه. يا زلمه شو بدك في خير؟ خلت الليل عندي، واذا زبطت معنا فزنا في هالمسابقه نربح تسجيل البوم كامل وبنجيبك معنا تعزف جبرة فرح. يلا معنا. المايونيز بنحط بالاول ولا بالاخر؟ في الاخر. شو اسم جارتكم؟ ام سعيد. ام سعيد؟
مين بينادي؟
المايونيز بنحط بالاخر.
شفتي يما؟ بالاخر.
سلام. هاي بشغلك استنى شوي، هسه بوقف الصوت. بكره موعد تسليم.
شو صار معك في الشغل يما؟
مش ظابطه يما، فيش شغل. احمد. شفته.
شكله في عمل منيح.
في.
طب يلا تعال نبدا بالاستديو.
بلا هبل، استوديو ايش؟
يا زلمه تعال شوف لحالك، شوف شو سويت. ولا استديوهات اللي
شرف امك جد بتحكي؟ مش يصير فينا زي الصبح. ماشي بدي اشوف شو بده يطلع معك. سلام باي.
امتى بدنا نجوزك يما؟ تحلق شعراتك.
يلا باي يا امي نكمل بعدين.
طيب تتأخرش بلاش الليلة يجي الجيش.
طيب ماشي. بس تيجي الكهرباء طفي الشمع بلاش تنحرق الدم.
ماشي ماشي الله معك.
صوت. شكلهم اجوا بدري اليوم. كل شغلك وبضاعتك على الفاضي. أنا جاتني فكرة، قوم معي. وين؟ يلا قوم. إذا ما يلا حرش لي طيزك، بدي آخذك على أحسن استديو في البلد. أهلا وسهلا تفضل. أهلا وسهلا بالشباب. هلا فيك يا عم. كياية فيش ولا صوت. شباب قديش بدكم وقت؟ خلينا نجرب بالأول بعدين بنشوف. كس أختهم صوت الكنابل كمان مرة. معلش خلينا نستنى شوي هسه بيطلع. في يا عمو. لا خليه.
Well, welcome back. I hope you are all suitably refreshed with whatever it is you use the break for, and you enjoyed that that short film. It really does bring so many memories of walking those streets back, doesn't it? We are shortly going to be have the great joy of hearing Omar speak, and Jeremy's going to introduce him. Just before he does, there are one or two people who it seems have been able to work the chat function. However, we don't have access to that this end. So if you have any further questions as we're going along for Omar, etc., or anything you think of through this, please do use the info email address as normal, as we said at the beginning. Don't use the chat function because we don't have access to be able to pick those questions up. Quite why that is happening, I have no idea, and frankly, at this stage, I'm not going to worry about it. It's just too good, the speakers that we've got coming. So Jeremy, over to you now for Omar, please.
Thank you, Mark. It's my great pleasure now to introduce to you all Omar Haramy, the Executive Director of Sabeel Jerusalem and a Palestinian Christian leader who lives in East Jerusalem. Omar is a long-time campaigner and advocate for peace and justice, and has worked with the Sabeel communities in Israel and Palestine for several years. And he's also helped lead Sabeel witness visits, including one I went on in autumn 2018. Omar has recently featured in the film Jerusalem, a Rock and a Hard Place, about the realities of living in Jerusalem today, which featured on Al Jazeera's special series. Omar's going to be speaking to us this morning on the topic of anti-Semitism, Israel and Palestine. Sabeel Jerusalem have been working extensively on this topic, looking at how anti-Semitism is used as a weapon to silence criticism of Israel and issues of racism, including racism against Palestinians. So we look forward very much, Omar, to what you have to share with us all now. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the very nice introduction. I appreciate it. And thank you all for taking part in this amazing conference, and thank you for giving me a chance to participate. As Jeremy has mentioned, Sabeel has been, since 2017, due to multiple requests from friends, partners, for Sabeel to get engaged and to speak on this very challenging topic, or to issue a document regarding anti-Semitism. So this has been for 3 years, and we have decided to make a series of documents. So this will be the first document in this series. And the first one is discussing the topic of anti-Semitism or anti-Jewish sentiment when it comes to within the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. We will also be issuing one specific to anti-Muslim, Islamophobia sentiment, and also anti-Christian sentiment. These are very difficult topics, so that's why we've been taking our time in developing these important documents. As Sabeel, of course, we find that this is very important for us to get engaged in this area of work, because it's part of our founding principles. We oppose all forms of discrimination, and as a Christian organization, we promote, and as in Palestinian liberation theology, we promote inclusivity, and we promote justice and non-violence. And it is healthy for all people, including Sabeel definitely, to get engaged with really looking internally what anti-Semitism is. So when we started working on this document, we realized two realities, two facts. One thing is that anti-Semitism exists. The second part, and no one is immune to be anti-Semitic or to use anti-Semitic tropes. And that's part of us as human beings, and a foundation in our theology. We are not perfect human beings, although we seek perfection. The other part is whenever anybody gets engaged, at least in the West, engaged with the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, the topic of anti-Semitism comes up. And usually it's a very effective method to really silence critiques or critiques of the occupation or the human rights violations in Palestine and Israel. So the first step for us is we couldn't really address, we didn't want to make a simple document. On one part, we say anti-Semitism is bad, on another part, just say advocating for Palestinian rights and human rights and national rights is not anti-Semitic. We wanted to go deeper in this, and that was a bit challenging because there hasn't been many or any scholars in Palestine who have really worked hard on this topic and developed such material. So we, while compiling the document that currently we have, and it is still unfortunately not final, we had, we worked with experts on anti-Semitism, on law, international law, people who are expert in human rights. And we also engaged with it with our local community, local theologians, scholars, local expatriates, definitely many of our friends of Sabeel, maybe on the board, on the level of the board, and people that they have picked. I would have to say at least over 100, and maybe close to 150 people have seriously read and took part in this discussion. People came with different notes and opinions. It doesn't mean most of them we've really accepted them and we really included them in the document that we currently have. Others we could not for multiple reasons. We also even took the Yad Vashem course. We spoke with scholars who are very Zionist or people who very much even endorse occupation. This document was very much focused on the topic of anti-Semitism, not the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, or Palestinian rights and so on. So there are very important points that we recommend that anybody who's going to be engaged with the document, and you will be receiving it definitely before the end of the year, and hopefully much before in the coming short period, that we need to acknowledge that anti-Semitism exists today in the world, and even among Palestinian voices. Yes, it does. Whether it is intentional or unintentional, that does not matter. Anti-Semitism should be revoked and challenged anywhere, regardless who is saying it. And we also, as I mentioned earlier, we recognize that even Sabeel is not immune to fall into trap or misunderstandings and so on. And that's something that nobody is immune. The church leaders, every society, any politician, we all need to acknowledge this. We also that it's in our goal in Palestinian liberation theology is not only seeking Palestinian rights. It's one of the goals, but it is the main foundation goal is justice, peace, and truth. And wherever there is discrimination, we need to stand against it. So when we approached, or when we started to learn, and I have to admit, I personally and many of the people who were taking part of this, especially the Palestinians, we don't know much about anti-Semitism. Maybe in the West, you have been introduced to it through education, through media. There isn't much talk that happens within the Palestinian community, internal dialogue when it comes to anti-Semitism. We can go into this, but it is to understand why this is, but without justifying it. So when we address the topic of anti-Semitism, terminology is extremely important. So the whole document is based on three levels: anti-Semitism, anti-Judaism, and anti-Zionism. So anti-Semitism, everybody would agree, or most scholars would agree, that is a modern ideology targeting the Jewish people based upon false theories of nation and race, drawing of the then new sciences of evolution in recent history, that is very much connected to evolution, biology, and genetics. It's basically saying that the Jewish people are are a race on their own, and these false accusations, and when now this is very important. Most, not all, but many, let's say, many scholars on anti-Semitism, traditional Zionist or Israeli, even scholars, would use anti-Semitism, although we don't completely agree with this, is to define or to include everything in it. So they include religious anti-Semitism. It's basically, it's hatred towards Judaism. It was very much enforced or even started within our Christian traditions, although there are some roots that go even before Christianity, but it exists. In our document, in our understanding, we like to use not to mix anti-Semitism as a general term for everything. We would like to separate it. That's how we got, these are one of the major conclusions that came to us. But religious anti-Semitism, we use the word for religious anti-Semitism as anti-Judaism. And it's very important when people move on into learning this understanding, at least using our Palestinian or Sabeel experience in this exercise. The second part is political anti-Semitism, which says, I mean, or claims that Jews as a group are criticized because of the difficulties they create to political lives, that they are, for example, maybe British Jews are not very loyal to the UK, or they prioritize Israel, or they have their own agenda, they're planning to take over the world, and so on. There is also a cultural anti-Semitism that Judaism sees or Jews see Judaism as a superior race, and their goal is to destroy every civilization, every other culture, and so on. There is also economic anti-Semitism, which claims that Jews control the economy of the world, and from A to Z, and anything that happens, Jews are behind it. And there is also the racial anti-Semitism. Now, when engaging many of the Jewish scholars or understanding their material, they decided to do it, I mean, to mix it all together. It's something that it's important for us to we didn't find this very helpful for us, because we believe that there are, we have to split them. Anti-Semitism, which is a modern or a recent false theory on Jews as a special race. Anti-Judaism is that it's Jews are, which is many of the Christian participants or Christians are aware of it through our history, is Christians, Jews are responsible for the killing of Jesus. They are very stubborn, they refuse to accept Jesus, and so on. It's something that has been changed very much, or I mean, there's a number of serious efforts to really eradicate the Christian faith from these tropes. Still exists, but there has been some important work that has happened, which brings many people's attention to this issue. Now, Zionism is, we go into Zionism, which is, Zionism became somehow the solution to for anti-Semitism. Jews are no longer able to live as a minority. They need to have a country on their own, and they decided that Palestine would be that country, and so on. And there's different kinds of Zionism. Not all Zionists, or the majority of Zionists, are not Jews, but Zionism has become an important, unfortunately, part of the identity of many Jews, not all Jews. We are all aware that there are many Jews who oppose Zionism. So I wanted to mention that there is something that really lacks, at least with Zionism, anti-Judaism or anti-Semitism. Usually the focus of it is usually in the Christian West. We also go into it, and that's why many Palestinians, sometimes when we get engaged with it, we say, that's a European problem or a Western problem. That's not the problem. Or it's a Christian problem. It's not a Muslim problem, because predominantly Palestinians are, the majority of Palestinians are Jews. And we go into this. Of course, we haven't done all of the needed research, but we have done lots of research, and there isn't consensus on it. And there's different schools of thought. Some people believe that that there's no there isn't a systematic anti-Semitism in Muslim lands, and that's only a Western idea, and we're not using, both local and international scholars use this. There are also other scholars who come and say that, yes, it exists. It existed in the past, anti-Semitism and serious anti-Judaism. However, Jews, so the predominantly, or the Muslim leaders and the communities saw Jews as a very small, weak minority, one of so many different minorities, and for them, they weren't the only other, for example, that was for many centuries in Europe. There are also different ideas and so on that contemporary anti-Semitism in the Middle East exists, and it rises, and its DNA comes back from Islam and the early Islamic history and so on. There are also others that say that anti-Semitic language or thought exists in the Middle East or in the Arab world or in Palestine specifically because of the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. Now, we're not saying you need to adopt one or two. It's possible to be a combination of all of the different points that we have raised, and we go more into details in the document. Unfortunately, the document we're still trying to make it readable, 20 pages. It seems it's going to be 104. It's more like a book now because there's so much to understand. Now, the most important part of contemporary of the document, which is really, the first part is educational, the second part about the history of anti-Semitism and how we really address it and divide it into different ideas. And there isn't enough time within 25 minutes to go into all of the details. And I would encourage you to focus your questions, if you wish, on the coming 2 slides. So for example, I'm just using some basic some basic examples. So for example, many Palestinians didn't understand why we got kicked out of our land and we faced and we went through Nakba and still going through Nakba. So some people believe that it's, maybe that's, it's part of end time theology that God is gathering the Jews so they get, they are for the final judgment. That's very present in Muslim or and Christian theology alike. Some people, it is use different theological interpretations. We find this as very anti-Semitic. There are also, within the Palestinian nationalism movement, there are some voices that completely dismiss and disconnect or look down on Jewish history or on Jews in general, because maybe it became as a reaction or whatever the causes are. We go into the document. That is also anti-Semitic. Or crosses the line or is on the line of anti-Semitism. So many Palestinians, for example, come and see that it's why justice is not being, although there are certain human rights, international community resolutions that mandate for example, an end of the occupation, why it's not happening. They come into the false conclusion that Jews control the world. And that's why no decision will be made against Israel. We also have this very much within our community. Unfortunately, I'm speaking in general, not on Sabeel community, but in general, as the Palestinian community, we have voices who who think of Jews and Zionists are one. They do not recognize that it's Zionism. You could be a Christian, a Muslim, a Jew, or a secular who is part of who endorses Zionism, and you could be a Jew who is completely opposing Zionism, as we know many from our Jewish friends, both Israeli and internationally. So it's also the idea of equating Israel and Jews. That's a problem within our community. And Israel does not make it easier with really mandating and really pushing to really mixing both Israel, to making Israel as the home for all Jews, and is a spokesperson or a spokesman on behalf of all Jews. We also sometimes have problems that we fall in with example, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So some people might find partners who are I mean, who oppose Judaism and Israel, not because they support Palestinian rights, but because of their own evil minds, that they would also be normal allies of Palestinians. So we go into this with examples. Now, we're not making judgment in the document. We understand that there's groups of people who are intentionally anti-Semitic, and there's a group of people who are unintentionally, they're wonderful people, but they fall into anti-Semitic language or ideas because of so many different reasons. But both, we need to recognize that both come up with the same result, anti-Semitism, and they are echoing anti-Semitic ideas and so on, and that is something that we completely oppose. So, so even, I mean, when we started looking at anti-Semitism, we were very humble. We did not start our own definition. We took what there are so many definitions of what anti-Semitism and anti-Judaism, what validates as anti-Semitic or anti-Jewish statements or actions, and there are a number of models that we do not endorse them, but we also interact with them, like the IHRA definition, the 3D definition, and so on. And we go into this, and we engage it in very much in serious discussions. So for example, religious Zionism, for example, Jews or Christians, mainly Christian Zionists, who believe that they use the state of Israel or Jews as they are part of the salvation plan of God, they need to come back. That's anti-Semitic, according to the definitions of the IHRA or many of the definitions that are found. Israel is your home. Netanyahu keeps saying it, or Trump keeps saying it, that the natural home, it's not the US or the UK or whatever. It is, you need to go to Israel. They do not recognize them as citizens and members of this. So that's also anti-Semitic, even though it's coming from very close allies of Israel or Zionism. According to the definitions that exist. So for example, many Jews who live in the West or around the world, they are called sometimes as Jewish haters, or I mean, failed attempts of being faithful to God, because they are betraying Judaism because they do not support the state of Israel, or maybe for them Israel is not important. They need to be very much engaged with this. Assuming that every Jew should be a supporter of Israel is also anti-Semitic, and that's something even comes up with political Israeli parties, politicians, and so on. Holding Israel to a higher standard or a lesser standard. I mean, it's unfortunately, I mean, one of the things that people say, oh, Jews, I mean, anti-Semitic or anti-Jewish statements would be like, Jews are always dirty, or Jews are always rich. Jews are always poor. So it's putting them not on the same level of other humans. While some Jews are rich, some Jews could be poor. Exactly for all people around the world, we are all human beings, regardless of our identity and so on. So when Israel comes and says the Israeli army is the most moral army, they are not able to conduct certain evil actions or so on. That's also anti-Semitic. Or using Israel as a geopolitical buffer to really divide the community, that it is using Israel as a tool, not for religious salvation, but also for cultural salvation. They are in the middle of a Muslim sea that they need to control, or to stop the evil coming from the East. That's also anti-Semitic. We go and we engage this in very serious discussion. Now, beyond anti-Semitism, we give people tools. First, we need to learn what anti-Semitism is. We need to understand how it might fall sometimes even with the Palestinian narrative. Then it is how to really, these are not a mandate. We are just saying that this is our research and this is our understanding as Sabeel, and with collaboration of many of our friends, even to go beyond anti-Semitism. So, for example, when you're doing an activity and you don't want it to be, you want to make sure that it has nothing to do with anti-Semitism and other forms of discrimination, people need to ask. We provided these important questions. The action is, you need to ask yourself as organizers or attendees, is the action or rhetoric you recognize that the action and rhetoric is not anti-Semitic, but it goes against our values as Sabeel Ecumenical Center. So this, we use it internally as a document. People are free to use it. So for example, using violent resistance, for example, it's not anti-Semitic. It's part of international law. All oppressed people, international law grants them within certain limitations and regulations to use violence. For us as Sabeel, we would not endorse it, not because it's anti-Semitic, but it is, but because we promote only non-violent means. Somebody could say the action or the rhetoric is not anti-Semitic when we're organizing an event, but it's not wise. It's ineffective or harmful. For example, doing activities, for example, somebody who is using in a presentation comparing Palestinian suffering to suffering of a specific group of people and so on. Is it anti-Semitic? It might be not, but is it really helpful or wise? Will it really distract the attention? And the third recommendation that we have, the action is not anti-Semitic, but it could easily be perceived as such. So avoid using it. So this also opened very much debate with us. For example, for some of you who have been taking part of the Sabeel Contemporary Work, is it anti-Semitic? No. Could it easily be perceived as such? Yes, it could. So now we are internally discussing, should we drop it? Is it part of all liberation theologies and so on? So it opens the discussions. We're not saying that this is like pass or fail. It's something that it helps people in internal reflection to understand what arguments are being made and so on. So this is a very short, I'm so sorry that the document is not finalized. And the purpose of it is that we're not making a statement. We're not making a tool that would really help people get find all of the requested answers. But we're doing it because because we recognize that we are not perfect and we need to always improve ourselves, because this is how we remain faithful to God. The second part of it is that it's an exercise we all need to be doing it in all different on all different levels, not only when it comes to anti-Semitism. It could be also applicable for Islamophobia or even anti-Christian sentiment and so on. So I haven't been following the time, but I usually go over the time.
Well, you've got about 2 minutes left, my friend.
Okay.
I'm texting you all over the place to tell you.
Okay, 2 minutes. Okay. So basically, this tool is not like for something for people to accept or to deny or to refuse. This tool is for people to come and see our experience going through a 3-year exercise, meeting so many people. It took us so much time to acknowledge the information, to process the information. Now we feel we are comfortable to make a stand, to say this is where we stand as Sabeel. When somebody comes and says, is this, when the topic of anti-Semitism comes up, it helps us. Not because we're trying to please Israel or people, or really we don't really care what people accuse us. We care about our feelings and our values and our ethics, and if we are really being faithful to God and Jesus Christ. So that's it, Mark.
Omar, it's a bit difficult to absorb all of that in the short, brief time that we've got, which is why we've recorded this, and the link will be on the webpage. And also, the amount of information there is very exciting, because it's one of the big topics of great confusion and great misunderstanding over here. So to have people with your experience living it day to day, it's helping us, is just extraordinary. And I really want to thank you for that. And we'll ensure that everybody, as soon as the document comes out, would ensure that everybody has access to it. So thank you so much. And even thank you for finishing in 2 minutes UK time, not 2 minutes Palestinian time. So that's even better. Fantastic. Most appreciated. Charlotte, you would like to take over at this point, I believe.
Yes, thank you very much, Omar. It's brilliant to hear you again on this. And obviously, as soon as we know that document from Sabeel has been published and is available, we will send that out to everybody sort of via our usual mailings, and of course have it on our website as well. So that hopefully will be coming to us soon as a sort of follow-up from what you've heard there as an introduction. We're going to very briefly go on now, just shortly before we come to our Q&A. And I just want to reflect a little bit on what we've heard today, both from Munther and from Isaac, and think about how we actually turn some of those words and those thoughts into actions for us here in the UK. I think one of the key messages that we've had from Palestine this year, and we've heard it again from Munther in the Cry for Hope, is that time is running out for the Palestinian Christian community. And our churches and our leaders know about the situation in Palestine, or many of them do, and they do understand that there is a sense of urgency. But I think what we have now with the release of Cry for Hope is a new opportunity to re-emphasize that urgency. And the difference as well this time is that we have, a very well-respected group of Palestinian theologians calling into question the integrity of a church across the world that can stand by in silence as our brothers and sisters in Christ are persecuted and oppressed. And that, I think, for us is a key thing that we need to be concentrating on here in our UK churches. It is this idea that it's not enough just to stay silent, or to say we will pray for peace, or we want the people of Palestine to be to have equal rights, but we don't know how to do it. We need to say actually silence is complicity, and your inaction as a church is contributing to those removal of rights of Palestinians and to Israel's ongoing apartheid measures. So as many of you know, we have our own campaign here in the UK called Investing for Peace. And I'm not going to focus on it today, but I just wanted to give you a bit of encouragement. Many of you who are on this call today have been involved in our Investing for Peace campaign groups. You're part of one of those denominational groups that tries to move forward in trying to get our churches not to invest in any company that profits from the occupation. And I just wanted to encourage you that we really feel that that campaign is gathering momentum. We are seeing opportunities within each of our groups to move that campaign forward. We're seeing new allies and new understanding from church leaders all the time about how this is something that they can actually use to make a difference in the lives of Palestinians. So if you want to find out a bit more about that campaign, please can you just head off to our website. There's a whole section on there. And if you want to hear more about it as well, you can contact us directly after the conference. But today I wanted to focus a little bit on Cry for Hope. And the reason I wanted to do that is, as I say, I think it's really important at this time for us to bring this cry into the heart of our churches here in the UK. And there are two ways that we would like you to help us do this. The first of those is that we'd like you to support the cry yourself. And Mark's just sharing a screen here, which looks at the Cry for Hope website. And on that website is a direct link to the campaign that accompanies it, the petition, which is hosted on Change. And Mark, I think if you can head to that site now. As you can see, this Cry for Hope petition has around 11,500 signatures. And we would love to see that hit 20, 30, 50, 100,000 signatures. The more signatures that we have on this that says, here are a large number of Christians who are supporting this cry from Palestine. They support their brothers and sisters. They stand in solidarity with them. The more strength and weight it has when we take it to our church leaders and say, this is why we want you to read and engage with it. So if you haven't looked at the cry yet, please go onto the website, have a look, read it, and then please endorse it by signing this petition, and then share it with those others in your churches and your friends and your family, so we can get as many people as possible signing this. The second thing that we want to focus on here in the UK is trying to help us to engage church leaders in a discussion and dialogue with Palestinian theologians about Cry for Hope. This doesn't mean that the church leaders need to agree with everything in the documents or have endorsed it. It doesn't mean they have to be experts on Palestine. What we're seeking to do is bring our church leaders on a path of understanding, of greater understanding, where they hear from and engage directly with the Palestinian theologians that are the authors of this Cry for Hope. So to do that, we have drafted an invite, which Mark is sharing on the screen now, which we would like you to send to one of your church leaders in your denomination. And we'd like to really leave it up to you about who that is. It could be your local minister or vicar. It could be a superintendent or a diocesan officer, or it could even be a bishop. It doesn't matter what level of the church we're looking at. What we want to do is to build a greater understanding amongst clergy here and facilitate that discussion online with Palestinian theologians. So we're giving you within this letter several opportunities to invite them to an online discussion session, which will be ecumenical, so it doesn't matter which denomination they're part of. We will host several of them over the autumn time, and we will actually invite people to come and be part of one of those sessions with the likes of Munther, Revd Dr, who is another author of that document. And hopefully what that will do is start off that process of dialogue in which we can have some kind of influence over what they believe about the situation, how they understand it, and what they as church leaders can do here in the UK. Mark, I think that's the wrong letter. If you have the one, that's it, brilliant. If you could just scroll to the second page of that, it's just an introduction to the Cry for Hope. And then you will see at the bottom of the page, there is a form. If you keep scrolling down, there is a form that they can fill in and a sort of time they can circle where they might be available for that discussion. So this is really how we would like to take forward Cry for Hope in our churches. And what we will do is after the conference, we'll send that draft letter to you along with all the links you need to sign the petition. Please pray and consider carefully which church leader in your denomination you could invite to be part of one of those online discussions. Long term, we believe that all of these actions will help us to move forward our Investing for Peace campaign. We can have more key allies and advocates for the Palestinian cause within the church, and that will help the church to take really concrete actions and steps towards justice that perhaps it hasn't done so before. So thank you very much for listening. We're excited about joining in this new idea with you. And as I say, you will be hearing more about it from us, including a draft of the letter. I'm going to hand over to Mark now. He's going to just talk a little bit about fundraising before we move on to our Q&A.
This is the normal part where people start going to make a cup of coffee and leaving the room because he's going to talk about money. Please don't. I won't keep you long, I promise you. We, over the last year or so, as an organisation, or perhaps 2 years, have gone through some fairly major changes. And Sabeel-Kairos is looking ever stronger as every day goes by through the magnificent work of Charlotte and those out in our regions and across the world who are supporting her and us. It's been an amazing success story to date, and the Investment for Peace program that Charlotte has been running is really starting to make inroads. As an organisation, we have moved office, we have changed our admin support so that we have some admin support, because for a period of time Charlotte was having to do that as well. And the great news is that Phoebe has now rejoined the organisation as our second advocate, having come back from her maternity leave. So we've doubled the people that we've got and doubled the success rate that they are achieving with the work they're doing. What we've also done is double that element of our cost base. Whilst we have saved money in an administrative function, and I'll acknowledge that my son kindly has given us some office space locally for nothing, and my daughter-in-law is very kindly working at very prime rates to run our admin function. We still need to talk about money, I'm afraid. Last year we did an actual fundraising campaign and your response was magnificent. I mean, absolutely unbelievable. And my gratitude goes out to every single one of the people on this call and the other people who haven't made it today, who give us so much support financially, because we need you to invest in us so that we can invest in our work on behalf of our Palestinian brothers and sisters. It's a very simple process. Not a single penny is wasted on things like training idiot board trustee member to run the technology side, for example. We are doing this. Every penny goes into our advocacy work and the support of that. And you've been superb in your support. Could I ask you to do two things for me? If you are able to move all of your contributions, whether it's membership and one-off contributions through each year, onto standing order or direct debit, that would help us enormously. Then we can keep a track of, to make sure you're on track to receive everything you deserve, but it also balances our money out through the year. And the second thing is, today you would have normally paid out train fares, car petrol, whatever, to get to a conference that you've either paid £30 or £18 if you're unwaged to come to. I'm sorry that I can't provide you with the lovely food and drink that we normally do, or indeed the opportunity to hug and shake hands and meet people that you haven't seen for a long time. What I hope you'll be able to do is to make that amount of donation you would normally have spent to Sabeel-Kairos, either by cheque to our office address, or by, even better, when you set your standing order and direct debit up, of an equivalent amount and anything else you feel you're able to give. If we can do that, and we've managed to hold our costs down by by using volunteers for this meeting, that will make a massive impact on our work in the Investment for Peace campaign. It will make a massive impact. And so if you're able to support that, I thank you in advance. Please don't forget after the call that you've said you will. And if you're not, nevertheless, we really appreciate the work you're doing. And we are very grateful just for the fact that you've come today and you're listening and supporting and praying and thinking and all of the things that I know all of you do. It's all equally important. Unfortunately, the element of the finance is something that I have to ask you to think about. So if you're able to donate 30 or 18 or whatever you can and change to standing order direct debits, we would be so grateful. We can accept cheques, although I have to say to you, it's getting harder and harder to find a bank that will take them almost now, but we can accept cheques. Please do send them if that's your chosen method. Thank you, I'm very grateful. Now, what we've been able to do, and I apologise again for the chat function not being there. It has been there for some people apparently, but anyway, we have had questions sent through to Jeremy on behalf of whoever has sent them in. I thank you. And Jeremy's just going to lead us now through those questions, and Munther and I and Omar can hopefully unmute themselves to answer those questions. So Jeremy, over to you.
Thank you, Mark. Can I just check how long we have available for this, Mark?
About 30 seconds. Be quick. No, we're about 5 or 10 minutes behind. That's pretty much all. And we're okay to go over a few minutes and delay the AGM slightly. So okay. It's important the questions are asked. And,
all right.
We've got a chance to answer them.
Okay, thank you, Mark. I just want to echo Mark's thanks for all those who sent in questions, and to say that we may not have time to address them all today, so I've had to make some decisions about which ones to raise with Munther and Omar. If your question doesn't get answered, then please note that we have it, and we'll think about how we might be able to respond to it. So I'd like to start off with a question which is directed to Munther, but I hope that Omar, after Munther, will give us his perspective on this. So Munther, you spoke powerfully about hope in your presentation. Can you give us a tip as to how you go on hoping in the context you find yourself in?
Yes. As I said in my talk, hoping is, to me, is more understood in terms of what I do, and in terms of the little things that I do. As a pastor, visiting a family, helping a family in their daily basis, or whether it's speaking to people trying to change reality on the ground, encouraging people to stay and not to leave. And of course, with our different and various ministries, whether it's a school where we go and see people and teach about coexistence, for example, how in our Lutheran schools we encourage Christians and Muslims, sometimes even we bring them together in the religious education class and so on. In other words, it's the little things that we do on a daily basis that keep us going despite the difficult reality around us. You know, a phrase I repeat all the time when I speak to young people: be the change you want to see. Because honestly, we can't control the external circumstances. They just keep getting worse and worse. And in the past, when I used to speak to young families who are considering leaving the land, I would try to convince them, no, it's better here. Nowadays, I gave up. I say, yeah, and I agree. It's easier if you want to choose to go outside. Humanly speaking, I cannot convince you anymore. But what I can convince you with, it's let's be the change we want to see in our world. And let's stay because we want to make a difference. rather than simply say, give promises about a future that I don't control. In a sense, yes, we want to be the change. I hope you get my message. Encourage people, be the change you want to see, and rather than wait for things to change, you implement that change. So I challenge people with a mission and with a message to our communities.
Thank you very much, Munther. Omar, is there anything you'd like to say on this question?
I mean, I always have things to say. Different matters. Honestly, I'm not a very big, I don't get very excited with the word hope. I like more faith. Hope doesn't really excite me. I think I have hope that we will have faith. I mean, I don't see that staying in this country. I see it's a blessing for me, for my family, and for the people. We encourage positive language. This country, it's a blessing to be in Jerusalem. It's beautiful. It's a blessing to be engaged with social justice, to advocate for the rights of the oppressed. It's not a burden. I know it's a costly, journey, but all life is costly. I think we need to focus on the positive things that are in our country, in our life, to really enjoy the blessing. I hope that people will have a faith that really excites them to believe in themselves, that we are able to overcome this nightmare of occupation. As I have faith that we will overcome COVID, I am sure we will overcome this occupation and this injustice. So hope, I see it usually coming, it's hope with victimhood do not go hand in hand. Hope goes with serious resistance, faith that is based on resistance, on non-violence, on values and ethics that are very much empowering. That's the resurrection. The resurrection is our hope.
Okay, thanks very much, Omar. A second question that we've got in here from someone was, during my first visit to Palestine in 1999, we were told that there'd be no indigenous Christians left in the Holy Land in 2050. How real does that statement feel now? So perhaps Munther, if you'd like to kick off with that for us.
Sadly, there is truth to that statement, yet I refuse to believe it. I refuse to believe it because, we've just heard Omar and his vision, considering it a blessing to be here. Certainly, that's my view. And so, yes, humanly speaking, it doesn't look good. I mean, people are leaving. I look at my congregation, a small congregation in Bethlehem of, weekly attendance between 60 and 70. And I see at least 4 or 5 families whose children has already immigrated. So we only have the parents. So that's a reality we have to face. Yet on the other hand, I know many, many others who are committed and who say, no matter what, we will stay. No matter what, we want to make a difference here, and we have a calling to stay in this land. So numbers might continue to be stable or decrease, but yet what's more important here is to highlight the importance of presence. And I hope you can hear my children in the background. Sorry about that. That's working from home. It's not just about numbers, but it's about presence. What we should be more concerned about is not the decline of numbers, but decline of influence, of impact, of presence. We are, again, to echo what Omar said, the Christians who have stayed here, we don't have the victimization mentality looking at numbers and so on, but we always emphasize what can we do for our community, whether it's in social justice, whether it's in education, whether it's in the beauty of a church gathering people in fellowship together. And that's what we should even look at as, when you want to stand up with the church here in Palestine as it's struggling to survive. It's not simply about surviving, but it's about our witness and presence in this land. So humanly speaking, doesn't look good, but those of us on the ground refuse to give up and see a calling here, and we refuse to believe these statistics.
Thanks very much, Munther. Omar, over to you for that question.
Jeremy, if we could just interrupt you, Omar, 1 second. Sorry, Jeremy, we've got till 12:05, sir.
Yep, thank you. Omar, would you like to respond?
I will echo my friend, Reverend Munther. I think it's what worries me the most is not about us as being present. I mean, we are not a cattle or an endangered species that we need to maintain. What I care for within a Christian perspective is the message of Christianity still alive and strong. Is there a strong stand for justice, equality, transparency? Is there the Christian message? We don't care about the genetics of Christians and the families or the communities. The message, the ministries are more important. And I think that is something that is worrying. You shouldn't be, when the church fails to take a stand against something that is so clear of injustice in Palestine, there's no church not only in Palestine. I'm worried about the church in the UK, in France, in the US, when the church becomes, I don't care about how many Christians are in the church singing hallelujah. If they are not translating their faith into the actions that would reflect our faith, that is very much based on justice and communication. I think it shouldn't be a worry for us as Christians in Palestine. It should be a worry for all of the church in the world. Very few are taking the prophetic voice for justice and peace. That is very worrying for us as Christians, not about what has remained of the early church in Jerusalem.
Thank you very much to both of you. I think possibly, well, we may have time for another one after this, but possibly a final question. Starting off with you, please, Munther. Are you able to get the young Palestinians of your church enthusiastic for the vision you have shared? Perhaps maybe you could go on and talk more widely, Omar, about getting young people involved, you know, through Sabeel. But start off in relation to your church, please, Munther.
Of course, it varies between one and the other. But overall, I think some people are catching the visions. Others simply, you know, want the you know, just a job and a normal life and so on. I can say with enthusiasm, yes, they are catching the vision. It's a daily battle that we have because, yes, on the one sense, there is what we preach about, what we embody in our sermons and in our actions as a church. But life here is difficult. Life here is really difficult. And in the age of globalization, when everybody seems to have, in Palestine at least, a cousin or an extended cousin who lives in America or Australia, and they see on social media how easy life there, they would think, why not make that jump ourselves? I'm excited that, you know, there is a core of young Palestinian Christian leaders. There is for example, I am very much engaged with the Christ at the Checkpoint young adults, a young group that's very active in the community and trying to impact that change. But, you know, honestly, we're still trying to, you know, on the one hand, fight all these battles, keep our congregation, do advocacy, engage in inter-religious relationships, and it's not always easy to bring everybody on board, even internally, if I am honest.
Thank you, thank you. Omar, can you respond in terms of the work of Sabeel with young people?
I mean, it is young people, historical, have had two challenges, major challenges. The major one, by far, is the occupation. The occupation is not enabling us to build a state and to have the structure of security and a system so that we can grow as a group of people, as Palestinians. In the last 10 years, we have seen a very big, concern of the young people, which is religious extremism, especially after that, all of the conflicts in the Middle East and the rising of ISIS and the fundamental ideologies. We feel that it is in our freedom and our rights were hijacked by Zion. Then we feel that our culture and our rights, our identity is also being hijacked in another way from religious extremism. And it's spreading among Christians, Muslims, and Jews, unfortunately. In the last 2 years, from our young people, the major frustration is with the church. They have somehow become immune, that we have come into an acceptance that this occupation seems eternal. We're willing to live with it. We are also immune somehow to radicalization. It's not easy to live as a minority. We've accepted it. The major frustration is with the church. The church fails to act upon its belief system and its foundations. We are frustrated with the church, especially the young people that we meet with. 90% of their comments are angry with towards the church. Even the recent studies that were made among the Christian community. And although we cannot really have full control on the first and the second challenges of our Christian community, the third one we do. We have a responsibility as members of the church, as a church, to really come together, to work together, to be more transparent, to be more ethical, to be more reflective, to give space for young people, not only just to breathe and eat and to live in Palestine, but also to be active members in this activity. And lately, these are, the last few years, this is where we are very much engaged with empowering young people within the churches to take part. And I have to admit, churches are collaborating and cooperating, and also organizations are all cooperating. Munther has done amazing work with Christ at the Checkpoint. There is a wonderful group also with a colleague of ours in the Kairos committee with Father Bashar Fawadle, with the Catholic group. There's so much leadership with our young groups. There is potential. And as long as there is potential, people recognize the challenges and work to work, there is hope. I have full hope in our coming generation that they will be able to do much better than previous generations or even the existing generation.
Thank you very much, Omar. And thank you both, Omar and Munther, for your answers to the questions we've had today. Apologies to those we've not been able to address your questions due to the time, to those who've submitted them, but we thank you very much for them.
Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Munther and Omar. We will attempt to get answers for your questions for you, and may even find a way of both posting the questions and the answers onto the website if that's an appropriate thing, once we've got various permissions and so on. So we really do appreciate that. Thank you so much. We are going to close our meeting with our conference with two things. One is prayer, as you would hope, and then Charlotte will bring us to a close with a final statement from somebody who's joined us, a guest who's joined us, but I'll let Charlotte talk about that to you. We're going to do the Lord's Prayer in a particular way, and who's leading that? Is that Jeremy?
No, I'm leading it.
Sorry, Karen, thank you so much. I recognise the voice even if I can't see the face out there somewhere. Oh yes, there you are. So Karen, over to you. There is an opportunity for us all to share in together. So if you feel comfortable when we get to that bit, unmute yourself and join in the prayer together when we get to that part. And Karen will tell you what that is. Karen, over to you.
Thank you. First of all, 5 of us are going to lead us all in a short meditation on the Lord's Prayer, which was written especially for the launch of Cry for Hope on the 1st of July. Once we get to the end of the meditation, that's when you can all unmute yourselves, please, because Jeremy will lead us all into saying the Lord's Prayer together, which obviously we can say in whichever language is the most familiar to us. But to begin with, the 5 of us will lead us through the short meditation. God, O Father and Mother, creator of all of us in your wonderful, diverse human family, loving all of us as your children, men and women, black and white, Palestinian and Jew, sending Jesus, who resisted empire, paid with his life, and was resurrected to empower all of us with life in abundance, inspiring us with his creative and prophetic spirit.
hallowed be your name. You revealed your name in a blaze of fire from the midst of a bush, calling Moses to liberate his people from the oppression of slavery, to face Pharaoh with God's word of warning. You revealed your name as hearing the cry of the oppressed, as God being with them now and in the future, Yahweh. Your kingdom come, your new just world, where no one fears a checkpoint, where no woman is stopped on the way to the hospital, where no child is taken in the middle of the night, where no farmer is violated by colonists, where no peaceful protester is shot by a military sniper, where no citizen is hit by a rocket.
Your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Your will revealed in the Torah, in words and deeds of Jesus and the apostles, in the Quran, the book of the Abrahamic brothers and sisters, your word of love and justice and mercy and care, inspiring Jews, Christians, Muslims, and people of all faiths to resist injustice, racism, and inequality, and work for peace, healing, and a new beginning, and for the common future of Jews and Palestinians in the Holy Land. Help Jewish people heed the prophets of justice in antiquity and today. Guide the West to stop supporting Israel's violation of international law and human rights.
Give us this day our daily bread. Let no one die of hunger, with enough food for everyone. Liberate the Palestinian economy from the strangulation of occupation. Lead us to a financial and political order directed towards the well-being of people and the earth. Cooperative forms of working, sharing and caring. And forgive us our debts, as we have also forgiven our debtors. Break the dominance of the owners of capital and weapons, pushing whole societies into the slavery of debt. Empower us to discover the power of forgiveness, a new beginning in all dimensions, forgiving the oppressors and establishing new lines of communication, loving even enemies, enabling their liberation from the evil of dominance and oppression.
And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. All of us are tempted by the lust for power. Men over women, parents over children, white over black, educated over non-educated, politicians over civilians, and all other forms of domination. At this moment, we are tempted to lose hope, as the Israeli government, together with the power of empire, violates international law by annexing once again land that is not theirs, deepening the apartheid system in the Holy Land, heaping violence upon violence. May civil society and the governments of the West awake to this lawlessness and cease their financing of the occupation through military aid and trade agreements. Let cooperation proceed only when international law is followed and human rights restored, strengthening the hope and resilience of the Palestinian people.
Especially we pray for Christians and the churches around the world to hear this cry for hope and call for decisive action. May they realize that we cannot serve God and the oppression of the Palestinians. Grant that their silence end, that they faithfully, for the rights of the Palestinians, they stand up against the misuse of the Bible by justifying the theft of Palestinian land. For yours is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen.
Amen.
So we have an opportunity now to join together in saying the Lord's Prayer in our own language. I'm going to lead off in English using the traditional version, but feel free to use whichever version you are most comfortable with. And Mark, are you going to unmute us all?
Everybody is unmuting themselves, so please continue.
Please unmute yourself to join in. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day
our daily bread,
and forgive us
our trespasses,
as we forgive
those who trespass against us.
Lead us not into
Temptation,
but
deliver
us from evil. Thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory.
ever and ever. Amen.
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 So Charlotte, thank you all for sharing the prayer with us, and thank you for the 5 who led through the meditation. We are nearing the end of the conference now. I'm not quite sure if Charlotte is going to mention the AGM. If not, I will come on at the end of her little bit and just explain what's going to happen. But Charlotte, would you like to officially close the conference?
So much for joining with us today, both having you all here online and listening to our wonderful speakers, but also joining together in prayer. Such an important thing for us to do in solidarity with one another. And we hope you've enjoyed today. I want to say a thank you to everyone who's contributed, but particularly to Munther and Omar for their time. We're inspired by your words, humbled by your steadfastness, and we really hope and pray that seeing so many of us online in forums like this gives you a renewed strength and hope that there are many of us that are committed to justice and committed to your freedom and your rights. Early next week, we'll send around an email with links to all of the things you've heard about today, the campaigns, the letters, the documents, but we'll also obviously send out the recording. So if you do know of people who weren't able to join us today, please do send them that recording so they get to hear these fantastic speakers as well. Finally, we're really delighted that we've actually been joined in the last sort of hour or so by a very special guest, the Palestinian ambassador to the UK, Dr. Hussam Zumlot. And he's been listening in to the Q&A and to the various things at the end here. And I'd like to invite Dr. Hussam Zumlot just to make some final closing remarks to bring our conference to a close. If you are staying for the AGM, please note we will have a short comfort break of 10 minutes and then we will reconvene on the same Zoom call. So please don't log off unless you're leaving us at the end. Thank you, Dr. Zumlot, and over to you.
Charlotte, the thanks are yours, really, and I have been touched by this last hour, and nothing I needed more than this inspiration that I have gotten from you and the Reverend Mark and the members of Sabeel-Kairos and Friends of Sabeel in the UK. Usually I'm asked to participate, so I try to give boost to morals, but today you boosted my morale, and I must say that I needed that boost. It came at a moment when such a message is needed to be heard by a person like me. Sometimes even soldiers need a tap on the shoulder and a push in the right direction. Thanks for the 2 speakers, very close friends of mine, Munther and Omar, and thanks for their message. I mean, I wish I was able to travel to Bethlehem again to see Munther and to get touched and inspired by his words like the last time. I was wandering in the middle of the night and then I encounter Munther. He takes me into his office in a refugee status almost for an hour, and he gave me what I needed, and today I heard from Munther what I needed, and from Omar 2 messages or 3 messages that we are truly, as Palestinians, Christians and Muslims, are very, very privileged to live in that land. And it's not just that we serve the land serves us, embraces us, and it is such an honor. The second message came from from Omar really is about the message of Christianity. And regardless if you are a Christian or a Muslim like me, we were nurtured and we were raised on the message of Christianity and on the message of Jesus, on the message of peace. We were raised to worship the Church of Nativity, and we were raised to always recite the stories of our ancestors. And the third message is about whether it is hope, as Munther said, or faith, as Omar said, but it is what Mark described as positive energy that you gave me today. I want to promise you that you have a friend and a partner, and hopefully we will meet Charlotte very soon, and of course Mark, and you have our absolute support. Our Christian community in Palestine are the original Christians, are the hope we have for spreading the message of the Prince of Peace, and you will find a lot that we can do together here. Your work with the churches has already fruited in the strong position and support here in the UK. So please, Charlotte, call on us, and thank you again for giving me this opportunity.
God bless, thank you. That's absolutely wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Hussam. I'm really grateful for you joining us. We came into contact through Dr. Hussam because we were encouraged to contact him regarding the Tent of Nations and what was happening there, and he gave us some very positive news about his support and the work that's happening around that. And that's a separate issue, but that's how I first spoke to him, and it's been a super conversation. So thank you so much. We will reconvene at 12:30. Those who want to stay for the AGM, just stay where you are now, and it will start at 12:30. If you don't want to stay for the AGM, that's fine. Thank you so much for joining us so far. I'm going to grab a quick cup of coffee, and people are waving, so we wave to each other. I think it's a wonderful way to, well, we share the peace in church by waving at the minute, so it's lovely to wave to each other. And I'm going to play a couple of Garth songs while between now and 12:30, because Garth's such a talented man and such moving words and music. So I will play that, and we'll see you at 12:30.
Churches of mercy down in the desert with Sam, Ayman, Shadi and me. Grandeur and laughter, a special oasis, a fifth gospel story that helps me believe. Give me wonder and laughter, hope in the morning, humor that heals me again and again. Moonlight on Galilee, joy in the evening, a heart that keeps dancing and a soul that is free. Now I like to travel a little bit slower. I like to laugh a little bit more. Go to Vespers at Chabka, touching the holy. Go down to the water and breathe by the shore. Give me wonder and laughter, hope in the morning, humor that heals me again and again. Moonlight on Galilee, joy in the evening, a heart that keeps dancing and a soul that is free. Swallows are flying inside the church there, they nest in the courtyard, fly over the sea. Beautiful trees surround Mensa Christi, the table of Christ seems to feed me. Give me wonder and laughter, hope in the morning, humor that heals me again and again. Moonlight on Galilee, joy in the evening, a heart that keeps dancing and a soul that is free. Alone to Dalmanutha, yet never alone. Had lost someone dear to me, felt she was close. The breath of the washed away. Prayer without words, saying the most. Give me wonder and laughter, hope in the morning, humor that heals me again and again. Moonlight on Galilee, joy in the evening, a heart that keeps dancing and a soul that is free. Touches of mercy down in the desert as we sang, Ayman, Shadi and me. Grandeur and laughter, a special oasis with the greatest of friends there ever could be. Give me wonder and laughter, hope in the morning, humor that heals me again and again. Moonlight on Galilee, joy in the evening, a heart that keeps dancing and a soul that is free. A heart that keeps dancing and a soul that is free. Beautiful resistance coming in on a river of love, comes from a freedom theater in a refugee camp, comes in many colors, in paintings on a wall. Beautiful resistance shows us how to walk tall. Beautiful resistance, surrounded by a wall, in Ida refugee camp, in northern Bethlehem. Ugly occupation dominates it all, but beautiful resistance shows us how to walk tall. Beautiful resistance, beautiful resistance, an intifada of hope, an uprising for humanity. Beautiful resistance, beautiful resistance, born in art and spirit, soaring higher than the gun. Higher than the hatred that strangles everyone. Beautiful resistance shows humanity the way. Beautiful resistance coming in with a vision of peace, shown in music, art and dance, a theater full of hope. Beautiful resistance brings us all alive, will defeat the way of death, it will rise